So if you have capital and you have to invest it to generate value, you will, and you have different projects. How do you select a project? You select a project based on its value, the based on value that project selects, that project creates, and that is decided again through capital budgeting process. So this whole process is known as capital budgeting. So it is a process that companies use for decision making on capital projects, which project to take, which project not to take. What is the importance for analysts? So if a company is investing into projects which create value, then overall value of the company will increase. If a company is investing into projects which are deteriorating value or which have lower value, then overall value of the company will be reduced. That's why this process or the outcomes of this process or the decisions made on this process are very important. So what is the process? First you generate the idea, then you analyze individual proposal, that is what all options do you have, let's say option A, option B and option C. Then you plan capital budget that and prioritize it, that how much budget should you have. Based on that you find out which one can you take, which one you cannot take. And then once you have taken a project, then monitoring and post auditing, that whether that project is actually generating the expected returns or not. So this is how this whole project works. When we say project, what are the types of projects? So there can be different types of project. A project can be a replacement project. For example, there is a machine A and now you want to replace it. It is old, you want to replace it. So that is a replacement project. And this is an easier decision. Why? Because you already have machine running, you are only replacing it. Expansion project, for example, that you are planning to expand into a new geography. So you are expanding outside the country, or in country you are expecting higher demand, so you are expanding operations. So, or you are expanding into another city. So this is a bit of difficult decision because you do not know whether demand will be there, whether you will have enough demand to meet the expansion outputs or not. Then you have new products and services. For example, you are not expanding into new geography, but you are coming up with a new product. And when you come up with a new product, you do not know how would the consumer react to it. So again, that is a more difficult decision. Or other projects can include regulatory, safety and environmental projects. So for example, a regulation requires you to do a project. That is regulatory, safety and environmental. In this kind of project, even if your NPV is negative, you will have to do it. Why? Because that is a requirement by regulator. Or other projects, any project which does not fall in these four categories would be an other project. So these are key types of projects, and decision would be based on the type of project. So basic principles of capital budgeting. What are the basic principles or assumptions used in capital budgeting? So remember the key assumptions. First of all, decision is always based on cash flow. So you do not base your decision on income or accounting profit. It is based on cash flow. So you forecast cash flows and based on that you take the decision. You find out the present value of cash flows and based on that you take the decision. Timing of cash flow is crucial. If cash flows are happening in earlier year, they will have more value. If they happen in later years, they will have lesser value. So timing is crucial. Cash flows are based on opportunity cost. So for example, if I have a machine A, I am replacing it with B. Machine A currently produces $100 worth of goods. Machine B is expected to produce 120. So by making this investment, the extra amount which I am getting is only $20. So my decision should be based on this incremental cash flows, not the complete cash flow. So when I am replacing it, I am foregoing 100 and now this is giving me 120. So the additional which I have received is $20. So you base your decision on incremental cash flows from the investment used. Cash flows are analyzed on after tax basis. So remember, you do not take the cash flow as it is, you take it on after tax basis. Financing costs are ignored in cash flows. So for example, if you are paying an interest expense, that is ignored, that is not subtracted from cash flow. And why do you think that happens? That happens because, for example, you have cash flows, you have forecasted cash flows. When you discount them back, you will discount them at required rate of return. This required rate of return will have cost of capital built into it. That cost of capital will have cost of equity and cost of debt. So you have already incorporated the finance cost component into required rate of return. So it is incorporated in discounting. So you do not need to subtract it from cash flows. So you ignore it in cash flows. Otherwise, it will be double counted. Capital budgeting cash flows are not net income. These are cash flows and not net income. Important capital budgeting concept, sunk cost. So if there is any cost that have already been incurred and which cannot be recovered, whether or not you do the project, that is a sunk cost and that is ignored in capital budgeting process. Why? Because no matter if you do the project or you do not do the project, that cost has been incurred. So now that shouldn't impact your decision. Opportunity cost, where when a resource is what a resource is worth in the next best use. So for example, if I am going for project A, I am foregoing an investment in B. So that opportunity cost should be taken into account. Incremental cash flow, we have discussed that you take incremental cash flows into account. What are those? Cash flow with decision minus cash flow without decision. So for example, if A is generating $100 and B will if I replace it with B, it will generate $120, then incremental is the cash flow with decision minus cash flow without decision. Externality, impact of the investment on other things beside investment. So let's say that there is a company which sells soaps. It is now launching a new soap. So there are chances that this new soap can take away sales from existing soap, which is cannibalization. That is an externality. Or let's say a company is setting up a plant. That plant will cause environmental pollution. Manufacturing plant. So they are setting up a manufacturing plant that will cause environmental pollution. Due to this environmental pollution, company will have to pay for it to regulatory authorities or pay taxes to regulatory authorities. That is an externality. So externality can be positive or can be negative. You should take that into account in your decision. Conventional cash flows. Conventional cash flow pattern is a cash flow pattern in which you initially have an outflow and then you have a series of inflows. If you have an outflow, then inflow, then again outflow, or then inflows, this is non-conventional. So conventional is the one in which you initially have outflow and then that is followed by series of inflows. Project interactions that make incremental cash flow analysis challenging. So with respect to project types, project can be independent or mutually exclusive. So let's say there is a project A and there is a project B. This is machine A. This is machine B. So either you can buy machine A or you can buy machine B. So if you can invest into one of these only, then these are known as mutually exclusive. That means you cannot go for both the projects at the same time. Otherwise, if you can invest in both of these at the same time, that is known as non-mutually exclusive or independent. So if the two projects are independent, then you can take both the projects. If two projects are mutually exclusive, you can only take one of the two projects. So that you need to check it when you are deciding whether to go for A or B or both or one of these. Project sequencing, in which investment in project creates option for investment in future project. So for example, I say that I am introducing a new product. So investing into this new product, this is a project. In future, I will expand it to other regions, yeah, other geographies. So this first project is creating an option for next project. If this is successful, then I can go into next project. This is project sequencing, that is sequencing project one after another. Unlimited funds versus capital rationing. So let's say that you have three projects A, B and C, and all of them are non-mutually exclusive and independent, so you can take all of these. If all of these are giving you value, let's say 100 million, 50 million, 75 million, if all of these have positive value, then you should take all of these because they have positive NPVs. But then again, you should also have enough capital to invest into these. So if you have unlimited capital, unlimited funds, then you invest into any project which gives you positive NPV and which is non-mutually exclusive. Otherwise, if you have limited capital, then you will have to manage capital in a way that you invest into projects which give you the highest value. So for example, if you have $200 million, you will take A and C because they will give you 175. No other combination will give you 175. These two will give you 150. These two will give you 125. So you should take A and C. So you should divide or ration your capital in such a way, or budget your capital in such a way that gives you the highest possible NPV. But that is only done if they are non-mutually exclusive. If they are mutually exclusive, then you will just select the one with the highest NPV. So IRR and NPV are both the methods, but you go with NPV whenever these two have conflicting results. So primary source should be NPV. So now the question is, how do you analyze whether a decision should be made or not? So there are different criteria, and 6 of those criteria are NPV, IRR, payback, discounted payback, AAR and PI. NPV we have already discussed in con, so we wouldn't go into calculation, but we'll only focus on the conceptual part. So for example, if you have unlimited fund and you have two projects A and B, and these two are independent, if they are independent, then you should take all of those projects which have positive NPV. A has positive, B has positive, you take both the project. So take A and B. And let's say I tell you that investment required in A is 100 and investment required in B is 80. NPV is also this and investment required is also 180. If you have again unlimited fund, you take 100 and 80 both. But if you are told they are mutually exclusive, then you take the one with the higher NPV. So you take A. If you have 150 million, they are independent. If they are independent, you should take both, but you have limited fund. If you invest into A, you will have to invest 100 million, and for B, you will have to invest 80 million. So in that case, you should invest into the one with the highest NPV. So A. If you have 200 million and they are independent, if they are independent, you should take both, and with 200 million you can take both, so take A and B. If you have 200 million but they are mutually exclusive, so although both have positive NPV, but you can only take one, so you take one with the highest NPV. So you should be able to find out which or analyze which decision should you take, or which project should you take and which project should you drop based on the type and based on the funds. Idea is that you should maximize the NPV. Any problem so far in this? IRR we have discussed in quant, we wouldn't discuss it again. Just to give you just to help you recall, IRR is that particular rate at which NPV turns 0, and you invest into a project which has higher IRR compared to required rate of return. And if IRR and NPV have conflicting results, you go with NPV. Payback period, the period in which you recover your investment. So for example, you made an investment of 10,000. You got 2,500. When you get 2,500, you have recovered 2,500 and remaining amount is 7,500. Then you get 2,500. So remaining amount is 5,000. Then you get 3,000. Remaining amount is 2,000. Then you get 3,000 more. So here you have recovered all of your investment. So payback period is between 3 and 4. That is third and fourth year. And how far from third year? So after third year, you are left with 2,000. And over this period, you are gaining or you are making 3,000. So when do you cover 2,000? You cover 2,000 in what proportion? 2,000 divided by 3,000, which is 0.67. So that means you cover 2,000 at 3.67 years. So this is your payback period. Any problem? Here we looked at the absolute amounts. If instead of looking at the absolute amounts, we discount these cash flows, and if we look at the discounted cash flows and then calculate the payback, that is known as discounted payback, and it will obviously be higher compared to normal payback because now your recovery is lower. You are discounting it back, you are taking discounted value, so your recovery is lower. Any question? AAR, average accounting rate of return. What is it? This is average net income divided by average book value. If it is higher, that means your return is higher. If return is higher, you should go with the investment. Advantages that it is easy to understand and easy to calculate. But then again, disadvantages that it is based on accounting numbers and not cash flows. While the investment decision should be better analyzed with cash flows. Secondly, it does not take time value of money into account. There is no discounting. Thirdly, there is no conceptually sound cutoff that distinguishes between profitable and unprofitable investment. You do not know how much AAR is good. Like in IRR, you compare it with required rate of return. Here you do not have any benchmark. But anyway, you should know how to calculate it. How do you calculate it? So here is an example. For example, a company invests 200,000 in a project that is depreciated straight line over 5-year life. So at the start, you have 200,000 times 0. It is depreciated to a 0 salvage value. That means at the end of 5th year, your value will be 0. Initial book value is 200,000. Final is 0. So average book value will be 200,000 plus 0 divided by 2. Average will be 100,000. So this denominator will be 100,000 and average net income. So you take net income for all the 5 years. You take the average of these 5 years. That comes out to be 18,000. So average net income divided by average book value gives you AAR, average accounting rate of return, 18%. Any problem so far in this? PI, profitability index. PI is similar to NPV. It is just converting NPV into a rate. So it is simply present value of future cash flows divided by initial investment. So you divide future value of present value of future cash flows by initial investment. That gives you PI. You can rearrange this formula into 1 plus NPV divided by initial investment. If PI is greater than 1, it means NPV is positive. And if NPV is positive, you take the project. So you invest if PI is greater than 1. If PI is lower than 1, that means NPV is negative, and so you do not take the project. Any question, problem? So this is very straightforward. NPV profile. What is NPV profile? It is simply a graph of NPV against discount rate. As discount rate increases, NPV decreases, and the point at which NPV becomes zero, that is the IRR. So from NPV profile, if you have to find out IRR, it will be the point at which NPV becomes zero. So if you plot NPV on y-axis and discount rate on x-axis, that is known as NPV profile. So you should invest in all of these where NPV is positive, and you should not invest here where NPV is negative. We also discussed in quant that NPV and IRR can give conflicting result, and when they give conflicting result, you should choose the one with NPV, higher NPV. So for example, in this case, project B has higher NPV, project A has higher IRR. Based on IRR, A should be selected, based on NPV, B should be selected. So you should select B. We also discussed this multiple IRR and no IRR problem in earlier topics when we discussed IRR and NPV, and we discussed that one of the major problems with IRR is that in some cases there can be multiple IRRs. Like for example, in this example, there are two IRRs, this and this. So if there are unconventional cash flows, in unconventional cash flows, there are chances that there can be multiple IRR. So in that case, IRR will not be a useful measure. Or there can be circumstances in which there is no IRR at all, in which NPV never turns zero. So that again, in that case again, IRR cannot be used. So these are the problems with IRR, due to which IRR is generally not preferred over NPV. NPV is preferred over IRR. But nevertheless, IRR is one of the most famous in US. So in US, IRR is the most famous, then followed by NPV. In UK, NPV is more famous. In Netherlands, NPV is most famous. In Germany, payback period is more famous. And in France again, payback period is more famous. So in these European countries, payback period is generally more famous to be famously used. In US, IRR is more famously used, and in UK, Netherlands, NPV is more famously used. But theoretically, NPV is the best measure. This is it about the reading. Let's end it here. Continue in next class.